I've been driving for delivery apps for almost 2 years now. Started during a layoff. Kept doing it because the money was decent. And I liked the freedom. No boss breathing down my neck. Just me, my car, and a phone telling me where to go next. You see weird stuff in this job. People who answer the door in costumes for no reason. Houses that smell like something died in the walls. Customers who tip a single cent just to mess with you. You get desensitized to weird pretty fast. It was a Thursday night in October. Slow week. The kind where you sit in parking lots for 20 minutes between pings because nobody's ordering food. I'd done 6 deliveries since 5 p.m. and I was ready to call it. My plan was 3 more runs and then home, maybe a beer, maybe just bed. I remember being tired in that specific way where your eyes feel sandy and the street lights start to smear a little when you look at them too long. The 7th order came through at 11:47 p.m. I want to be precise about the time because I've gone back and checked my app history since. More than once, like some part of me needed proof it actually happened the way I remember it. 11:47 p.m. The notification sound went off, that cheerful little chime the app uses, completely indifferent to what it was about to show me. I picked up my phone to accept it, barely looking, thumb already moving on autopilot. Then I actually read the screen and my thumb just stopped. Customer name, you. Not a typo, not you, like someone's actual nickname. All caps, you. Like the app itself was talking directly to me. I figured it was a glitch. Apps glitch all the time. I'd had orders show up with no items before. Ghost orders that didn't exist when I called the restaurant, addresses that auto-corrected to gibberish. So I tapped into the order details, expecting some broken UI mess that I'd just decline and move on from. The address was my apartment. Not a building that looked like mine. Not a street with a similar name. My actual unit number, my actual building, the one I'd lived in for the past 3 years. The one I hadn't told the app about because I'd never ordered delivery to my own place before. Why would I? I cook at home. I don't get food delivered to myself. That's not how this works. The order contents were even worse. 1 item, no restaurant attached, no price, no description, beyond 4 words. 1, a key. I sat in my car in the parking lot of a Walgreens for probably 10 minutes just staring at my phone. My hands had gone cold in that specific way they do, right before you throw up. Except I wasn't sick, I was just scared. And my body apparently didn't have a separate response for that. I told myself it was a prank. Somebody at the company messing with drivers, some kind of viral test thing. Maybe even a coworker who somehow got my address. I'd heard stories about delivery apps testing weird features on random drivers without warning. A/B testing things that probably shouldn't be tested on people who are alone in their cars at midnight. But the tip listed on the order was $200. $200 attached to an order with no actual food, no actual restaurant, nothing to pick up. Just an address, my address, and instructions to deliver something that didn't exist. I should have declined it right there. I want to be really clear about that in hindsight because every single instinct I had was screaming at me to decline it. But $200 is $200. And the rational part of my brain that's been trained by 2 years of gig work convinced the scared part of my brain that this was probably just some corporate test account. And worst case, I'd show up to an empty order and report it for the bonus pay anyway. So I drove home. It's a 12-minute drive from that Walgreens to my apartment, and I spent every single minute of it telling myself, this was nothing, this was a glitch, this was somebody's idea of a joke, this was anything other than what some small animal part of my brain was already starting to suspect, which was that something had found me, specifically me, and wanted me to come home and let it in. My building looked completely normal when I pulled up. Same busted light over the entrance that's been out since I moved in. Same row of mailboxes with the dented one on the end. Nothing was different. I remember that mattering to me. I kept checking. Like I was looking for some obvious horror movie sign. Fog rolling in or all the lights flickering, and there was nothing. Just a normal Thursday night outside a normal apartment building, which somehow made it worse because it meant whatever was happening wasn't happening to the world. It was happening to me, specifically inside my own 4 walls, and the rest of the universe didn't care or notice. I climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. My door looked fine, same scuff mark near the handle from when I moved my couch in. I actually laughed a little standing there, because for 1 second I let myself believe it was actually going to be nothing. The door was unlocked. I lock my door every single time I leave. It's not even a conscious habit anymore, it's just something I do. Look at the way you don't think about blinking. I stood in the hallway for a solid minute, keys in my hand, staring at a door that I knew with absolute certainty I had locked roughly 9 hours earlier when I left for my shift. I called out. Stupidly, I know. The way every person in every horror movie calls out into a place they already suspect is dangerous, like announcing yourself, somehow helps. Nobody answered. No sound at all, actually. Not even the normal sounds of my apartment. No hum from the fridge. No tick from the radiator. Nothing. Just silence, so complete it felt like pressure on my ears. You're on. Hey, Q. There's a building downtown I'd been delivering to for almost a year before that night. One of those converted brick places, 6 stories. The kind with a buzzer system that's older than the company that installed it, and about as reliable. Half the buzzers in that building didn't work. You learned which units to just call ahead for instead of standing in the cold, mashing a button that connected to nothing. 4B was one of the broken ones. I knew that because I'd delivered there at least a dozen times before, and every single time the routine was the same. Buzzer does nothing. You call the number on the order, somebody picks up almost instantly and tells you to come on up or leave it at the door. Normal stuff. Nothing about that building had ever struck me as anything other than slightly run down and inconvenient. The order that night was simple. Some kind of noodle dish, 1 drink. Total came to about $18. A decent enough tip that I wasn't going to complain about a 6-story walk-up with broken elevator access, which, yeah, of course the elevator was broken too. That building collected every possible inconvenience, like it was trying to set a record. I called the number listed for 4B the second I pulled up outside. Same as always. Already bracing for the climb up 4 flights of narrow stairs that smelled vaguely like old carpet and somebody's cigarettes from a decade ago. The call connected on the very first ring. Not even a full ring. I remember that specifically because it startled me a little, the way it cut off the ringtone almost instantly, like someone had been holding the phone already, finger hovering over the answer button, waiting for my call before I'd even finished dialing. Just leave it outside, the voice said. Mail, I think. Though there was something flat about it. Something that made it hard to pin down details like age or accent. Doors open. I told him okay, said it'd be up in a few minutes, the usual script, and started up the stairs. By the time I reached the 4th floor, I was a little out of breath. Old buildings like that have steep stairs, narrow ones, built for a different century's idea of human bodies. Unit 4B's door was open. Not wide open, just cracked. Maybe 4 or 5 inches. The kind of gap that suggests someone opened it and walked away, rather than someone waiting behind it. Lights were off inside, as far as I could tell through the gap. Just darkness past the threshold. No flicker of a TV, no lamp glow. Nothing. I set the bag down right outside the door like he'd asked. Standard stuff. I was already turning to head back down the stairs, already thinking about my next ping, already mentally somewhere else entirely. The voice spoke again. Wait. I want to be clear about something here because it matters. There was no phone in my hand anymore. I'd ended the call after he told me the door was open. My phone was back in my jacket pocket, screen off. Not on speaker, not anything. There was no way I should have been hearing that voice at all. But I heard it. Close. Not phone close, not coming through a speaker close. Close like someone standing directly behind that 4-inch gap in the door. Mouth near the opening. Voice pitched just loud enough to reach me on the landing. Did you bring enough for 2? I didn't answer. I genuinely couldn't. For a second, my whole body had gone rigid in that way it does when something registers as wrong before your brain has even articulated why. I looked down at the receipt taped to the bag. An old habit, double-checking orders before I leave them. 1 entree, 1 drink. The order notes in the little box where customers sometimes write special instructions just said, "Table for one, thanks." He hadn't said how many people were eating. I hadn't told him the order contents over the phone. We'd only talked about the door being open. There was no way for him to know what was or wasn't in that bag, unless he'd already looked. And the bag was sealed, stapled shut the way the restaurant always does it, sitting exactly where I just set it down 4 seconds earlier. Oh, I left it there. I didn't say anything back. I just turned and went down those stairs faster than I think I've ever moved in my life, and I didn't look back at that door once. Not even when I reached the ground floor, not even when I was back outside in the cold air, gulping it down like I'd been underwater. That should have been the end of it. Just a weird night, a creepy customer, the kind of story you tell other drivers over drinks and laugh about because nothing actually happened, right? Nobody got hurt. I left, I drove off. I did 3 more deliveries that night without incident. Except a few weeks later, I got assigned to that same building again. Different unit this time, to 2A, a normal enough order, no weirdness at all. While I was waiting for the buzzer system to maybe work for once, another driver came down the stairs, a guy I vaguely recognized from the driver lounge at one of the restaurants we both frequented. We got to talking, the way drivers do when we're both stuck waiting on the same broken building system. I mentioned, half joking, that 4B had given me the creeps a few weeks back. He laughed at first, then stopped laughing when I described which unit specifically. 4B's been empty for like 6 months, he said. Building manager told me when I asked about a buzzer that wasn't working. Said nobody's lived there since some tenant skipped out on rent last year. No phone line connected to that unit either. Manager had it disconnected after the guy left. Something about an unpaid bill. I told him I'd called a number for that order. I told him someone had answered, given me instructions, spoken to me, through a door that should have led into an empty apartment with no working phone line and no tenant. He didn't have an answer for that. Neither do I, honestly. I checked my delivery history afterward. The order to 4B is still there. Completed, rated, even tipped an extra $5 after the fact. With the kind of post-delivery tip bump that real satisfied customers sometimes add. Whoever rated that order, whoever added that tip, did it from an account attached to an apartment that, according to the building's own records, had been sitting vacant the entire time. I don't take orders to that building anymore if I can help it. I've started declining anything with that address before I even read the unit number because I don't want to find out whether the elevator's been fixed, and I definitely don't want to find out who's currently answering the phone for 4B. I started driving nights about 1.5 years ago, mostly because the pay bump was worth the trade-off of being awake while the rest of the world slept. Surge pricing after midnight, less traffic, fewer canceled orders from people who change their minds. Nights are good business if you can handle the schedule messing with your body clock. I'd gotten used to it. Used to the empty roads, the gas stations that never close, the particular quality of silence that settles over a city after about 2 a.m. when even the bars have let out and it's just you and the occasional other driver and whatever's still awake for reasons of its own. The app I drove for most often had a feature I'd never seen mentioned in any of the driver forums, never seen explained in the onboarding materials, never heard another driver bring up even once in almost 2 years of doing this job. A small green dot. No order number attached to it, no customer name, no payout listed. Just a single pulsing green dot that would occasionally appear on my map. Sitting on some street I happened to already be driving down, like the app was simply pointing at something and trusting me to understand what it meant. The first time I saw it, I assumed it was a bug. Some leftover artifact from a canceled order, a rendering glitch. Nothing worth investigating. I ignored it. It disappeared after a few minutes, same as any other glitch. The second time, a few weeks later, I was curious enough to actually drive toward it instead of away from it. I had time to kill between pings anyway, and something about its insistence, the way it kept pulsing steadily instead of flickering like a real glitch would, made me want to know what was actually there. It led me 3 blocks to a parking lot outside a shuttered strip mall, and sitting on the curb under one dead streetlight was a wallet. Just sitting there, clearly dropped. Clearly someone's actual property. I picked it up. found an ID inside, looked the guy up, and managed to track him down through a mutual friend on social media 2 days later. Got it back to him. He was grateful, gave me $40 for the trouble, even though I told him he didn't need to. After that, I started following the dot whenever it showed up. It became something almost like a hobby, a strange little side quest layered on top of my actual job. A few more times it led to small things like that. A dropped phone once, a set of house keys another time. Once it led me to a kid standing alone outside a locked house at almost 1 a.m., clearly scared, clearly not supposed to be out there by himself. I called it in properly, stayed with him until someone responsible showed up, and felt pretty good about myself. For a few days afterward, I noticed something else too, though it took me a while to put it together. Every time I followed the dot a little while later, sometimes hours, sometimes the next day, I'd see an unexplained bonus payout land in my driver account. No order attached to it, no description beyond a vague line item that just said performance incentive. I never claimed any of those payouts. I never filed any kind of report that should have triggered a bonus. They just appeared like the app itself was thanking me for something it had no business knowing about. I told myself it was some kind of beta feature, maybe a corporate gimmick to encourage community-minded behavior among drivers, maybe a reward system being tested quietly before a wider rollout. It made a strange kind of sense, in a corporate nonsense way, the kind of thing a company might actually do to generate good press later. Our app helped reunite 40 lost dogs with their owners, that sort of story. I didn't think too hard about it. I just kept following the dot when it showed up, because it felt good to help people and because the money didn't hurt either. Then came the night that changed how I felt about all of it permanently. It was past 3 a.m., deep into one of those long, quiet shifts where the whole city feels abandoned except for you. I just dropped off an order at an apartment complex on the edge of town, and I was driving back toward the highway when the dot appeared, pulsing on a stretch of road I recognized but rarely drove. A long, dark, 2-lane stretch, with woods pressing in close on both sides, the kind of road that doesn't get streetlights because nobody who designed the infrastructure thought anyone would need to see anything out there. I followed it the way I always did. No hesitation by that point. A year and a half of small wins had trained that hesitation right out of me. I drove for almost 10 minutes along that stretch, watching the dot stay exactly the same distance ahead of me on the map the entire time. Never getting closer, never falling behind, just hovering there with the same steady pulse it always had. That part felt different. Every other time, the dot had been stationary, sitting on one fixed spot waiting for me to arrive. This time, it was moving exactly as fast as I was moving, staying exactly the same distance away no matter how much I sped up or slowed down. Eventually, the road narrowed even further, asphalt giving way to gravel, woods closing in tighter on both sides, until my headlights were the only light source for what felt like miles. I slowed the car to a stop, some old animal instinct finally cutting through a year and a half of complacency, and looked down at the dot. It was no longer ahead of me on the map. It was sitting directly on top of my own location marker, pulsing right there on the little icon representing my car, my position, me. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. A notification, the kind that usually announces a new order or a payout, glowing on the lock screen even though the app was still open to the map. You completed 47 special deliveries, one more for platinum status. I sat there staring at that number for longer than I'd like to admit. 47. I tried to count back through everything I remembered. Wallet, the keys, the phone, the kid outside the house, a handful of other small errands I'd half forgotten about over a year and a half of doing this. Even being generous, even counting every single thing I could remember, I came up with maybe 15, 20 at the absolute most. I had never once formally accepted any of these jobs. There had never been an accept button, never a decline button, never any kind of consent screen at all. The dot just appeared and I just followed it every single time, and somehow that had been quietly logged as 47 completed special deliveries that I had no actual memory of completing. Up ahead, past the edge of my headlights, the dot on the map shifted again. sliding off my location and back onto the road into the woods themselves, deeper than any path I could actually see from where I was sitting. Pulsing patiently in a spot that, as far as I could tell from the windshield, had no road, no trail, nothing but dense trees, swallowing the dark hole. I didn't follow it. I sat in that car for a long time with the engine running, lights on, doors locked, staring at that pulsing green dot waiting for me somewhere in trees that shouldn't have had anything in them worth finding. Eventually, I just turned the car around, kissed it such carefully, slowly, the gravel crunching way too loud in that silence, and drove back the way I'd come, going well over the speed limit the entire way home. I don't drive nights anymore. I switched my availability to mornings and early afternoons only. Told the people I work with it was a sleep schedule thing. Didn't mention any of the rest of it because there wasn't really a way to say it out loud that didn't sound insane. But the dot still finds me sometimes. Not on shift. Not on the delivery map, which I've barely opened since switching schedules. It shows up on my phone while I'm home, sitting on my couch, or lying in bed at night, unable to sleep. Once even while I was just standing in my kitchen making coffee on an ordinary Saturday morning. I'll glance at my phone for some unrelated reason, and there it'll be, pulsing quietly on the map. Even though the app shouldn't have any reason to be tracking my location off the clock, pulsing right there on top of wherever I currently am. Patient as it's always been, like it's just checking in, like it's just letting me know it remembers exactly where to find me whenever it decides it's ready for that 48th delivery.